Welcome to Sharing the Light, the Sunshine Cathedral's talk show webcast where we discuss theological, ethical, spiritual, and social issues with the Cathedral's pastoral staff. Sunshine Cathedral is a metropolitan community church affiliated with the Center for Progressive Christianity. We're located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Now, we hope you will enjoy this episode of Sharing the Light. Hello and welcome to Sharing the Light. I'm Reverend Griffin, the Director of Media and Justice Ministry here at the Sunshine Cathedral. I am joined today by our Senior Pastor, Reverend Dr. Durrell Watkins, and also Reverend Michael Diaz, who is the Director of Religious Education and Volunteer Ministries here at the Sunshine Cathedral. Our topic for today is we're looking at a recent comment made where a cardinal says, "No heaven for gays." So as we look at this topic today, we invite our Senior Pastor to lead us off in this discussion of the cardinal saying, "No heaven for gays."
Well, this comment was made in December, and the cardinal was recently retired. Javier Lozano Barragan, I think is how you say his name, and he was in charge of health issues, including AIDS, ironically enough, for the Vatican.
The spokesperson.
And yes, the spokesperson for health issues, and so in a publication, and not speaking of perhaps as officially as because he is a retired person, just speaking to a publication, but he did say that that gays and transgender people, I think he said transsexuals, that would not in the afterlife experience heaven, and which is sort of a ridiculous assumption anyway. But and his arguments were that homosexuality is intrinsically disordered, that it's unnatural, and of course one assumes, he didn't really quote any scripture, but one assumes that when he says unnatural, he's referring to Romans 1, where the Apostle Paul talks about people sort of being afflicted by God to go against their own nature as a punishment for worshiping improperly. And that's never the context that the homophobes quote that story in, but it's always that they go against their nature. Paraphysin is the Greek, against their own nature, because it is presumed that these people are heterosexual and that they have somehow been changed from what they were as a punishment for worshiping improperly. It's in the context of idolatry. And so we can guess that that's what he was talking about when he said that it's unnatural. He didn't really expand much more than that, other than to just continue the religious abusive language that excludes and vilifies same-gender loving people and gender-variant people.
Well, and I guess this may be a question for both of you to respond, is who is heaven for?
Well, exactly. I've never been there. I've never been to Alaska yet. So, I mean, I'm just not the tour guide for the afterlife real estate places. I assume that the Apostle Paul got it right, or Luke is quoting Paul, who's quoting a Greek poet, Epimenides, when he says, "It's in God that we live and move and have our being." I assume that's true. I assume that's forever. And so heaven, as I imagine it, is a state of being. It's not something that happens later. It's something that's part of us, within us, right here and now. It's something we continue to enjoy forever, not something we get to at some later point. My assumption is that it is in God that we forever live and move and have our being. So whatever heaven is, I can't imagine anyone is excluded from it for any reason.
Mike?
I think the way that the cardinal talks about heaven, it's almost privileging it, in the sense that heaven is reserved for a special group of people who pass
Christian,
the ultimate test, but they have to meet a certain criteria. And I'm always weary of those people who say in order to get into heaven you have to meet this code, this requirement, you have to pass this test. I think if we take a step back, I mean, really, just not even talking about heaven, when you talk about this cardinal, he's alienating so many people within his own church. Mm-hmm. How many people are gay in the Catholic Church? And even the Catholic Church recognizes that people are ordered towards a more homosexual orientation, but they require them to be celibates. Mm-hmm. Now, I think all of us agree that in order to be fully human and really embrace our divinity, sexuality is a big part of that.
Mm-hmm. Now, some people may have the gift of celibacy, but it's a gift. I mean, you can't require someone to have a gift that they don't have. Just like if you don't have the gift of singing, I can't require that you sing beautifully. And if you don't have the gift of rhythm and movement, I can't require that you be a great dancer. And so if you don't have the gift of celibacy, you can't really require people to do something that they're not gifted to do. I'm always very leery, though, of treating holding the afterlife as a threat to control people's behavior in this life. If you do what we say, you get to go to the Cosmic Country Club. Right. It's exclusive and restricted. And if you don't do what we say, well, then you go to afterlife prison. Or doing what we say is sort of fire insurance. It keeps you out of forever and ever trouble. And the truth is, without deep theological arguments or any of that, I'm just not interested in a God or a religion or a heaven that you can't get into because you told the truth about who you were. I'm just not interested in a heaven where who I love means I can't be loved by God forever. That's just, if that's your story, I need another story. That's not a story I'm buying. That's not a story I'm selling. So it's the way it's presented makes it so irrelevant. It's from the Middle Ages, a way of sort of controlling people. And I just think in the 21st century, we've got to get past that. We've got to read Scripture more critically. We've got to think about God more broadly. And we've got to make religion be more reasonable, more sensible, more empowering, or we need to do away with it entirely.
And we know lots of people read that particular article. It's kind of been out all over the place. And my final question for you both this morning, and this has been a very positive discussion, but what is that one positive thing that you would say to a gay person who may be conflicted by what this cardinal said?
Well, probably more gay people know about this statement because of this conversation than they would have known otherwise. I mean, some retired guy said to some paper in Italy, that gay people can't go to heaven. I mean, we've probably actually given him more exposure than he would have gotten elsewhere, at least in our little corner of the world. But he certainly represents what other people say. I mean, people are always saying, it's Adam and Eve and not Adam and Steve, which is so ridiculous because it's not only Adam and Eve, it's also the sky and the earth, it's the fish and the animals. I mean, God created a lot of stuff, and none of that is to say heterosexuality is the only way to exist in the world. It's a story. It is an ancient story. It is a creation myth that borrows from other creation myths. That it really isn't an argument about sexual orientation that we wouldn't even really have scientific language for millennia later. So, but still, people say that. They quote a scripture or they say it's unnatural. I don't know what that means. You see it all throughout nature. It's certainly part of my nature to be who I am and to love who I love. But it's just part of what people say. But because he says it in a red dress, wearing a red cape and a cross and a little skull cap, it's like when a doctor wearing a smock says, you're going to die. Well, you give up all hope because he's wearing or she's wearing the trappings of authority. Well, this person is wearing the trappings of authority saying, there's no hope for you. And that is abuse of power. And I just would hope that people would resist that. Whenever power is used abusively, it is our moral obligation to resist it at all cost. And if God is the tyrant that these people make God out to be, we should even resist that God at all cost. Because tyranny must be resisted at all cost.
Great. Michael?
Sheryl Crow has a song, and one of the lyrics are, if it makes you happy, then why the hell are you so sad?
Great theologian, Sheryl Crow.
There are, I think, no matter what people say, theologians, cardinals, whoever the case may be, I think there's an authority within us. And that if we start recognizing what makes us feel good on the inside, and I think if we pay attention to here instead of what other people are saying about us,
the inward light,
we'll be more in tune with what the divine is saying than anyone else.
Great. Last word, Pastor?
I think that's a good one.
All righty. Well, thank you for joining us here today at our Sharing the Light program. Thank you for joining us for another great episode of Sharing the Light. Tell your friends about this online ministry, and when you're in Southeast Florida, make sure you worship with us on a Sunday at the 9 a.m., the 10:30 a.m., or the 6 p.m. service. And now for a final word from our senior pastor, the Reverend Dr. Durrell Watkins.
Email me at durrell@sunshinecathedral.net if you have a religious question or if you'd like to subscribe to our daily devotional magazine, Spirit and Truth. We'll send it anywhere in the United States for an annual donation of any size. You can also email us prayer requests, or you can make donations on our website, www.sunshinecathedral.org. You'll also want to check out our great performing arts series, religious education classes, conferences, and other exciting